Welcome everyone to Choices, 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 charting your career in accounting and finance. My name is Madeline Cheatham. I'm a product marketing manager here at UWorld, and I am joined today by an amazing team of instructors that are going to be speaking to you today. Peter Olinto, Roger Phillip, and Monte Swain. I will introduce them a little bit more thoroughly in a moment. But today we're going to be focusing on the different career options that you can take specifically in CPA, CMA, and CFA. So let's get going. Now, to begin with, I just want to give you a little bit of background on UWorld. UWorld is your go-to for your high stakes exam preparation. We've helped over 2 million pass their high stakes exams. We today are here from the accounting and finance vertical, but we cover an array of categories, including medical, nursing, legal, grad school, college prep, pharmacy, all of that. And we have a lot of amazing professionals that have gone through our programs, have passed their exams, and are doing great in their career. But today we're talking about accounting and finance. So what's interesting is what builds our vertical specifically in accounting and finance is a combination. We, a few years ago, acquired the company Roger CPA Review. That's actually where I came over from. And also here today on the call from Roger CPA Review is the man himself, Roger Phillip, who was the founder of Roger CPA Review. Hi, Roger.
Hello. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. Signature opening that I've heard for many years. Thank you, Roger. We also last year acquired Wiley Efficient Learning, a whole portfolio of offerings in accounting and finance. And today, from that vertical, we have Dr. Monte Swain. So he's here today too to speak to you about the CMA exam. And last but not least, we have renowned CPA, CFA instructor, Peter Olinto, who also joined our team. And altogether, all of these entities coming together to the power of UWorld bring you the best of the best in these test prep options. Now, who we got here today, or just kind of introduce them a little bit, and when it's their portion to speak, I'm going to ask them to give a little bit of intro on themselves. Tell us a little bit about yourselves, folks, when it's your turn to speak. But introducing to you Roger Phillip, CPA, CGMA. He's the Chief Creative Officer and Lead Instructor at UWorld for specifically focusing on the CPA exam. Monte Swain, PhD, CMA, CPA, CGMA, alphabet soup here. A lead instructor here today for the CMA, and then Mr. Peter Olinto himself, CFA, JD, CPA inactive, because his focus is on making sure you are prepared for your exams, and he is our global lead instructor, and he focuses on CFA and CPA. So today, speaking to you, Roger is going to be covering the CPA portion, Monty will be covering CMA, and Mr. Olinto will be covering CFA. So let's get into it. So why are we here today? When you are beginning your career, there are an array of opportunities, endless possibilities, so many options. Where do you begin? Most important, that was interesting. Most importantly, it is crucial that you find a career path that you can be passionate about. You spend a third of your life at work, so it's really important that you choose something that you love and energizes you, makes you want to get up in the morning.
And if you don't love it, you need to make a lot of money doing it, right? Sometimes you got to love the one you're with, and that's a lot easier to do if they show you the money.
Show me the money.
You know what?
Show me the money.
That is absolutely true. And maybe, Pete, that is what your passion is. If the money is your passion, then hey, go for it.
You know, money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys a lot of good substitutes.
A little bit of happiness. So today specifically, we're going to be focusing on two different directions that you can go in accounting and finance, and then even more specifically, the CPA, CMA, and CFA. And you'll see CMA is there right in the middle because it really does touch both sides of this path.
Back and forth, yeah.
Yeah. And very important thing to take to note is that whatever direction you go, there are core concepts and skills that you need to build and focus on as you are getting into your career. So I'm going to call on the experts to talk a little bit about what you're seeing here on this slide.
I'll jump in here. I just retired from my life as a professor of 35 years, and I've been counseling students as they've been building their core and establishing their electives and designing their life in college, which today we're talking about continuing that work, whether you're in college or out. But wow, talk about a cafeteria plan. Life presents that. A number of these courses are their core courses for some of you in your education. You're recognizing a lot of electives. You're probably looking there and thinking, there's courses I've taken that aren't on that list. Did I get it wrong? No, no way. That middle section is where you're designing yourself. And then we're going to talk today about how to package it together with these exams. So I look at a lot of those, and I'm excited about what's on the list.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that, Monte. You know, for my folks who are finance majors and looking to sit for the CFA and be a big-time charter holder, like it or not, the most heavily tested topic in level 1 is accounting. You're going to see a lot of intermediate level accounting on the level 1 exam. So you need to take, if it's not required at your school, intermediate accounting, and the level 2 exam has advanced accounting topics, pension accounting, multinational operations, consolidations. So use those electives wisely. And I'll just mention for the CFA candidates, as of right now, you either need the master's or the extra 30 credit hours. If you're in a rigorous master's program, that's great. But if you're doing your own extra 30 credit hours, don't take golf or dance or yoga, even though Roger teaches a yoga class, don't do it. You want to take classes that will potentially pay dividends in your career. So for those accounting folks, if you have some interest in finance, you might want to think about financial statement analysis, derivatives, alternative investments, etc. So use those electives wisely, get a return on your investment.
Well, I don't know about golf, man. That seems like a core class.
Especially if you want to be a partner.
That's important.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you both. All right, so we are I'm going to hand over the mic, so to speak, to Roger. And Roger, I'm going to ask that if you could just give a little background on yourself before you jump into the content. And then also to the audience, if you have any questions, we do have our specialists on the other side in CPA, CMA, and CFA that will be answering questions live within the chat, and then they will also be saving a few for the greater audience that we'll read out loud at the end. And without further ado, let's talk about CPA.
CPA. Well, hello everyone and welcome, welcome, as she said. I'm Roger Phillip of UWorld, Roger CPA Review. A little bit of background on myself. I worked at Deloitte & Touche in downtown Los Angeles, where I got my CPA certificate. As Monte, same thing. I started teaching CPA Review about 35 years ago when I was 4, right? And our job is to take accounting and give it life, energy, passion, and help you accomplish your goal of what? Passing the CPA exam. And I like to let students know it's not an IQ test. You do not have to be a genius to be a CPA, right? Peter Olinto passed it. Anyone can pass it. But it's a test of discipline, which means if you study, you will pass. Our job is to motivate you for the couple of hundred hours it's going to take of prep time in order to accomplish the goal of passing all 4 parts of the CPA exam. And the exam's gone through some changes, which I'll talk about in just a couple of minutes. There's 6 parts, but we'll get into that. You only have to take 4 of the 6. Now, today I want to talk about why is it such a great time to become a CPA? Well, first of all, you're among an elite group of people, right? Passing the CPA exam. As I said, it's not easy, but we're going to make it as palatable as possible. Great career options, right? We're going to talk about public, private, governmental. Maybe as Monte, you want to go into academia as well, which is a great opportunity as well. Some of the tasks that you may be performing, one is maybe tax preparation. Now, I notice once you pass the CPA exam, you're Your parents are going to say, hey, we spent all that money on college. Can you do my taxes? And you're going to be like, Mom, Dad, I'm in audit. I don't know taxes, right? But in any case, they don't quite get that. They say CPA, you got to know taxes. Career options, as I'll talk about in a minute. Also, some of the basic tasks of things like tax planning, estate taxes, gift taxes. For those out in the real world, you know, a lot of these rules are sunsetting in 2025. So we'll see what happens in the elections in the next 10 days. Other things you're doing, business analysis, consulting, auditing, data analytics. All of these are part of being a CPA. Now, a lot of people say, well, why should I become a CPA? High demand. High demand means there's always a strong market. In other words, even as the economy changes, inflation and so on, you can always get a job, which leads to the second one there, job security. Because with job security, whether the economy's up or down, you start a new company, we always need what? Accountants. We always need CPAs. Career advancement. That's one of the great things that I loved about being in public, for example, is you're always learning, right? We need CPE, continuing professional education. For example, I need 80 hours every 2 years to keep my CPA certificate active. Well, that means that it helps you to keep on top of all the new information and also to advance your career. Also, diverse opportunities, whether you're working in auditing, whether you're working in tax, whether you're working in consulting, all of those are great options that are available to you as a CPA. Another thing, I read a study where it said the average CPA earns about $1 million more over the life of their career than a non-CPA. So right there alone, that should be motivation. Not that money buys happiness, but as I said, buys good substitutes. Then we talk about, okay, what are the CPA career options? What are the different opportunities that are available for me? Well, as I mentioned, public accounting, private accounting, governmental accounting, academia, and so on. Now, what is public accounting? That's what I did, right? That's when I worked at Deloitte, working at the Big Four. Back when I'm so old, it was called the Big Eight, the Big Seven, Big Six, and then boom, the Final Four. But it's the Big Four. You can work at a national firm. You can work at a local firm, right? You're basically an external, independent, objective, unbiased, neutral auditor, and you're doing audit or tax or consulting, right? Maybe, for example, you're doing forensic accounting, or you want to be an accounting or audit manager, tax manager, and so on. So that's public, where you're going out externally and looking at companies' books and records. You could go into academia. A lot of the people that I know that have worked all their way up to partner, then they're getting ready to retire or slow down. That's when they reach into academia and they love it. So you could be an accounting professor at a university. You could be a curriculum developer, like we need people here at UWorld, for example. You can be doing CPE, where you're teaching continuing professional education. One of my friends teaches for the AI CPA part-time, doing the CPE seminars. That's an option. Another one is corporate accounting or private accounting. That's where you work internally within the firm. Maybe you're the CFO, financial analyst, cost accountant. One of my good friends worked at Fox at Disney, and he was in participation accounting. And his job was to figure out on the back end of a TV show or a movie how much the producer, the writer, the director, the actors, and so on. So that's still in the field of accounting, but again, that would be more private. Governmental accounting, governmental auditor, tax examiner. Some of my students work at the IRS or even the FBI, which is kind of cool. So one of my students gets to walk around and carry a gun on her hip, right? Now, when I worked at Deloitte, they never issued me a weapon, right? Freeze, I need your general ledger now. And anyway, the point is that's still an option to you as part of becoming a CPA. Finally, nonprofit accounting, like nonprofit, internal auditors, charitable organizations. One of my friends works at the Hilton Foundation. And basically, I think they've got a couple of $1 billion, and by law, you've got to give away 5% every year. So her job's to make sure that the $100 million they're giving away every year are accounted for properly, so we know where that money is going. So my point being that we think of, CPAs were kind of conservative and boring, and no. There's all this myriad of, a buffet of choices, kind of like that picture earlier, and you can change throughout your career. Maybe you start in public, go to private, go to government, go to academia, go to charitable organizations. So these are all options that are available to you. All right, now that I've motivated you to become a CPA, how do I get all these exciting things, right? What do I need to do? Well, the first thing you need to do is study for and pass the CPA exam. Now, as many of you have heard, major changes occurred in the 2024 exam, and the AICPA is always kind of tweaking the exam because they want to make sure that the exam itself reflects what a second-year CPA might see in the real world. So they want to make sure that the skills and knowledge needed in our ever-changing, technologically driven marketplace are being tested on the exam. Now, with the new exam, there's a strong core with technology throughout. There's more knowledge in the 3 core parts, because there's going to be 3 core parts, as you'll see in this picture, called FAR, Reg, and Audit, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then there's 3 disciplines, of which you pick one of the 3 to sit for, which is TCP, ISC, and the bar exam. Also, it reflects the reality and the practice. In other words, what is it that we're doing in the real world? That's where they want to keep those changes coming, and it's, of course, adaptive and flexible. Now, as far as the exam, you'll see here on the next slide that the 3 core parts are audit, FAR, and reg. And auditing is the AUD, that's, planning, internal control, substantive testing, audit reports. In our opinion, the statements for represents fairly and arbitrary sex, but it is business to so towards the West Windows for the gap. So that's part of it. Economics is even in the audit exam. Then you've got FAR, financial accounting and reporting. That's like your intermediate 1, intermediate 2. It's basic financial reporting, your income statement, your balance sheets, accounts receivable, inventory, accounts payable, notes payable, bonds payable, and so on. So that would be your FAR, financial accounting. And then the third of the core, and I'm saying core because you have to take each of these 3 in any order you want, but audit, FAR, and the last one, reg, which is tax. So that's going to be federal tax procedures, property transactions, a lot of individual and entity tax, even business laws in the regulation exam. So that's called the core, where every student would take that. Then you have 3 disciplines. Now, of the 3, you just have to choose one. So I start with one, I take one, I pass one, I'm done. I don't have to take the other 2. The 3 options here are ISC, which is Information Systems and Control. That's going to be kind of like SOC reports, SOC 1, 2, 3, cybersecurity, IT risks, fun and exciting stuff like that if you're an IT person. BAR is Business Analysis and Reporting. That's kind of like your advanced accounting. So it's kind of like FAR plus more. So it's business combination stuff that Peter was talking about earlier, derivatives, government, nonprofit, cost managerial. For example, with leases, from the lessee standpoint, that might be on the FAR exam, but on the lessors, which is more rarely tested, that would be in the BAR exam. So a little bit more advanced, a little deeper dive. Then TCP, that's your tax compliance and planning. That's going to be taxable, non-taxable transactions, estates, trusts, and so on. So a little bit more of the advanced areas in the tax. So again, you would sit down and you would say, okay, I have to take the 3 core, so let me kind of plan that in whatever order I think I want to go in, and we'll talk about that closer to when you're going to take the exam, and then also how to choose the discipline. So you'll see on the next slide, you kind of look at this and say, okay, how can I choose between ISC or BAR or TCP? And it's kind of like, what feels good to you? What is the area that you want to focus in on? Also, maybe where do you see your career going? Am I going to be focused in more IT audit? Maybe it's ISC. Maybe, for example, I'm going to be doing more general auditing, or I'm doing financial statement analysis, technical accounting, and so on. That would be maybe BAR. Or specifically, if I love tax and I'm going to be the tax guru and eventually the partner in charge of tax, maybe it's going to be TCP. Now, I realize that it's a question you have to kind of ask yourself. So you'll see here on this slide, and you'll see this later on too, a QR code. And you'll see there that we have 3 4-minute videos, and it's kind of an overview of each of the disciplines. That way it can kind of give you guidance into what direction or what area you might want to head in. So again, it's not something you have to be married to, gosh forbid, right, marriage. But the point is, it's a chance to kind of see how each one is set up, what's kind of in it. And a lot of us, what we say is, try that, try one of the disciplines, see how you do. Once you pass it, you don't have to take the other 2. If you start a discipline, don't like it and say, you know what, let me switch, you can do that as well. But again, you have to take the 3 core and the 1 discipline. Now, when you look at the exam itself, right, the exam itself is broken up into a lot of details. So when you look at the exam structure here, you've got 6 parts in total, as I said, 3 core. You have to take all the core and one of the 3 disciplines. All the exams are 4 hours in length, and that's what, 4 times 4, 16 hours of exams. So that's how it's set up. You can take one part at a time. Now, back in my day, I sound like your parents, when I was your age, we had to sit for all 4 parts at the same time. You had to pass at least 2 parts to keep anything, and you had to get at least a 50% on the parts not passed, or you kept nothing. So if you got a 99, 99, 99, 49, guess what? You had to start over or marry wealthy. That changed where now you study for a part, you take a part. You study for a part, you take a part. Now, with all the exams you'll see here, there are 5 testlets. The first 2 testlets are multiple choice. The other 3 testlets are what we call a task-based simulation, more like a problem. Could be fill in the blank, could be picking from options, could be filling out a spreadsheet, for example. All of the exams are 50% multiple choice and 50% of what we call a task-based simulation, except ISC is 60% multiple choice and 40% task-based simulations. We'll go into this in more detail in class, but the multiple choice, they have anywhere from 50 to 82 multiple choice, anywhere from 6 to 8 task-based simulations. Now, as I said earlier, it's not an IQ test. You don't have to be a genius. What's a passing score? 75 and above. So if you get a 75 and above, you're a CPA. Now, what does a 75 feel like in college? Like a C? C? Well, that's what C stands for in CPA, right? Average. So you don't have to be a genius. However, if you study, you will pass. That's where we come in. And one of the new things that they've changed too is when you pass a part, generally, we call that a leg on the exam, you have anywhere from 30 to 36 months to pass the other 3 parts. So that kind of motivates you where you pass a part. Now I've got 30 to 36 months to pass the rest. Now, I understand that you're excited to become a CPA. So you're asking yourself, hey, what is the road to CPA? How do I go from today to becoming a CPA? Well, first of all, you need to meet the educational requirements. The states are all a little bit different, but basically you need about 120 units, which is a degree, in order to sit for the exam, and 150 to get certified. So the rules are different to sit versus getting certified. You also need 1 to 2 years of experience under the supervision of a licensed active CPA. You need to pass the exams. As I said, passing all 4 parts. Now you've got 30 to 36 months, but you can check our website for specifics. Now in 24, they introduced a new exam, and they've done this. I've been doing this for many years when I used to have hair, because I saw the picture earlier. Hello, where'd it go? The point is, I've been around a while. And whenever they do big changes to the exam, they kind of roll it out slowly. That's what they're doing in 24. In 25, the core parts will have continuous testing starting in 2025. The disciplines will be available the first month of each quarter. But again, check out our site for the specifics. The other thing to becoming a CPA is the ethics exam. Now, every state's a little bit different, but it's basically you got to get a 90% or above. It's an ethics exam. You're answering questions about independence, and most people cheat. I'm just kidding. That's not ethical, but it is called an ethics exam. In any case, it is a great time to be a CPA. Again, great career opportunities, great salaries. You're never bored because you're always learning and growing and developing. You're always challenged. That's where that continuing education comes in. It is a highly academic exam. My advice, sit as close to graduation of college as possible, because what you've seen for the last 3, 4, 17 years of college is what you're going to see on the exam. So again, if you study, you will pass. It's not an IQ test. Hope to see you in class. Now, another great opportunity out there is to become a CMA, a certified management accountant. And that's where my good friend Monte Swain is here to talk about that wonderful opportunity.
Fantastic. That was like a lateral. I'll take the ball then, right? Should I take over at this point?
Go for it.
All right, here we go. So, Roger, that was awesome. I'm a CPA as well, and super proud and grateful to have that designation in my career. And I'm a CMA, and that's been the focus of my career. Certified Management Accounting. When you hear that term, there's a way to say it. This is how you say it: Certified Management Accountant. This is a focus on managing, on using accounting and finance to build value in organizations. And that's an exciting type of work to do, for certain. It's generally done inside of organizations. As in both management and as a leader. So if you're interested in working in a leadership role in your organization, the CMA is a great way to smooth out and accelerate that career. As you develop your expertise in strategy, in controls and data analytics, understanding how decisions work and how to support those decisions. Many consultants in the finance and accounting field have CMAs, so advisory work, both internal advisory work, external advisory work, which is to say consulting. CMA really contributes to that. Forecasting, risk management. This is about creating value and sustaining that value in an organization. So that's the world of a CMA. Now let's talk a little bit more about what it takes or why you should do this CMA. You're interested in growth and opportunities in your career. You're investing in yourself right now. You want to have a lot of surety that this is going to mean something to you, both financially and personally, that you're fulfilled and having an impact in whatever organizations that you're working with or building yourself. The CMA is going to accelerate that. It's just going to like exponentially grow your career. You'll be an influencer. You'll be an impactor strategically, operationally. The cool thing about the CMA is it's not focused on any particular country in the world. It's a worldwide designation, and it has a recognition in most countries that you could possibly go. We're not dealing with a license here. It's purely a certification, so it's absolutely transportable. It follows you like a brand and a bench strength. And so therefore, again, a lot of career flexibility. You've seen now some data about 20%, 10%, 43% more. This is, you want to be a little careful with these data because they're coming from different surveys, but this is a survey of accountants worldwide holding the CMA or not holding the CMA. It would be similar with holding the CPA or CFA or not. This is about being certified, and certification has a huge impact on your bottom line. All right, so moving on now, what kind of careers? Again, this is management accounting here. Anything that has to do with using finance and accounting to build an organization, to manage that organization, is a career that the CMA connects to. So costing, risk management, budgeting work, to be a controller. Isn't that a great term? I am a controller. That sounds, my wife thinks I act too much like a controller sometimes, so she has to settle me down. But we need good controls in organizations. And yeah, you see those three letters, CFO, Chief Financial Officer. This is a certification that greases the skids if you're moving and interested in that type of a chief leadership role in the organization. I have worked as a CFO with my CMA. I've worked as a CPA in the audit world. I've been able to dance back and forth with both those designations in hand. That's something.
Can you show us a few steps, Monte? The dance.
I'm dancing, baby.
He's dancing back
in my chair.
Schmance, I like it.
I'm the Muhammad Ali. You gotta float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, baby. All right, moving. I love these guys. So let's move on here and talk a little bit more about the specifics. So we got two parts of the exam. The CPA, you've got 4 parts. The CFA, how many parts are there, Peter?
Like 35.
See, you guys are unbelievable.
Yeah.
You gotta wait for my show. I can't give it away yet.
I'm leaking here.
I was gonna go get some popcorn.
Yeah. So the CMA's got 2 parts, but there are 6 sections or focus areas. Now you're not moving from one section to the next section. It's one exam, but 15% of that exam is going to be about external financial reporting. This is basic intermediate financial accounting. And as Peter said, that is a front load requirement for any of these certifications. You got to have a core intermediate level or better in basic financial accounting. But then we move into planning, budgeting, forecasting, performance management, down to the second row, cost management. Those 3 are what I call the management side of accounting there. All of those topics are about building value and organizing and controlling and accelerating an organization. Internal controls is where we build some boundaries, where we build some checkpoints. This internal auditing and external auditing has a lot to do with internal controls. There's a crossover there to your CPA exam. Technology and analytics, man, if you are not picking up better data analytics, understanding big data, how information systems work and are structured, you are going to be in the dust, my friend. All of these exams are incorporating this type of expertise, and the CMA has certainly got it as well. So that's part one. Let's talk about part two now. Part one is the financial planning and analytics exam. Part two is the strategic financial management. And here, it may be more that the word that we're emphasizing is not management as much as finance. This is more finance, and I'm starting to rub shoulders with Peter in his world here. We're doing financial statement analysis. The key word there is ratios. And it's all about understanding, using the financial reporting, how a company is doing. That happens internally and externally. Classic corporate finance, business decision analysis, there's CVP or break even, margin analysis, pricing, risk management down there across the second row, understanding enterprise risk management and working with the COSO model, capital investment decisions, NPV, IRR, payback, you recognize those terms. And then the exam for the CMA always incorporates ethics within the exam. It's a little different in the CPA depending on what state or jurisdiction you sit in. But the CMA is not specific to or managed by particular states or jurisdiction. It's a worldwide exam, and so the ethics is pounded right into the center of it, and it's a great set of ethical standards and skills and vocabulary that you need to have. So that's part one and part two. You can take them in either order. So as I've talked through this, one of those exams was appealing more to you to the other in terms of, hey, that's more in my wheelhouse. Those are the classes I've been taking. That's the background that I've got some connection with. If finance is better for you to start with, take part two first. Absolutely doesn't matter which order you take these in. You get to choose. And I've mentioned there's a lot of crossover here. This is a great slide, and perhaps you want to take a screenshot of this. This compares the CPA and the CMA in terms of different skill sets or topic areas. And we're trying to give you a sense of where they share the same content, where they're quite different from each other. But there's an awful lot of green there where we are very focused, for instance, on technology and analytics, as I said, about a third of the way down, and risk management, about 2/3 or halfway down. There is some areas like tax and auditing and business law where the CMA is not working in that at all, because the CPA's got very much a compliance requirement there, as well as a management requirement. The CMA is entirely about management. So we've got a lot of pricing, for example, right at the bottom. Both of these exams care about economics because we live in a business world and we are professionals in that world. You got to understand basic economics there. So there's a way to compare these two. Now, it'd be interesting if we had a third column for the CFA, we'd see some crossovers there as well. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the structure itself. Again, two parts. What are you going to see on this? You're going to see multiple choice questions and you're going to see essays. Essays. We always panic a little bit about that. Man, don't worry about that. Me and my team are going to guide you right through getting ready for doing essay performance. It'll be walk in the park, my friend. But you're going to start with 100 multiple choice questions. And you've got 3 hours to get through these 100 multiple choice questions. Then you got 1 hour to work on these 2 essay questions. If you get done with the multiple choice questions quicker than 3 hours, that's great. You just kick over to the essays and you get that much more time on it. So we'll talk about strategy and whether or not you want to buy a little more time for the essays or not. We'll get you strategically sensible for this exam and we'll rock this thing with you there. Both exams have the exact same structure, 100 multiple choice, a couple of essays, bada bing, bada bang, and we're done with this thing. Okay. Let's talk about the road to the CMA. So First, you join the CMA program. Now, with Roger, you also would join the AICPA as well and be part of the certification program. But here is a difference between Roger CPA world and Monte CMA world. You can pass the exams before you complete the education requirement. For most states and jurisdictions, you got to complete the education requirement before you can sit for the CPA exams. So if you're thinking about both exams, probably you want to start the CMA because you're able to. Many of my students sit for, and most of them fully pass the CMA exam before they graduate from college. They're taking that exam, snugging it right up against the courses they're taking that are most relevant to part 1 or part 2. That's a really smart move. But you pass both parts of the exam and you meet the education requirement. You can do that in either order. The key is you got to do the exam and complete your education within 7 years of each other. Again, order doesn't matter, just needs to be in that zone of 7 years. And gain work experience. Now that is an order of operations. You've got to do that largely after you take the exam. Why? Because you need to be full-time employed, and that exam is going to help you become full-time employed. How difficult is it to achieve the work experience? Not difficult at all. Just as long as you're working in a business setting where you're doing management, accounting, finance, even tax work, if it's professional work in a business setting, it's going to count for the work experience. So the CMA exam is a very broad exam, and the work experience that's allowed to qualify for the CMA is also very, very broad as well. So that's the CMA. So how are you going to do this thing? You're going to do this thing as soon as possible, ASAP. So again, university students can sit for this before graduation. So if you're in school and you're thinking, when do I start this? Yesterday, my friend, get on it. Because the sooner you pass, the sooner you're going to see the benefits of making this investment in yourself. As I mentioned, one of those parts is net present value and return on investment. You are the most important capital investment you can possibly make. And the sooner you make that investment, the sooner you're going to reap those rewards. So let's get you certified and moving forward to having an impact in the world, impact in your organization, to being the finance manager and the finance leader that you see in yourself. We see it in you. So let's get there.
Woo!
Yeah. So let's hand this over to Peter now. He's going to talk to you about the CFA.
Thank you, Monty. Thank you, Roger. You know, they saved me for last, and I got like the smallest bladder on the planet. So it's like exam day. You know, you can't waste time going to the bathroom. So I always recommend when you study, make sure you're wearing a diaper, as I am right now. So it's all good. So thank you, everybody. Welcome. Yes. Peter Olinto here, jack of all trades. I'm his cousin Pete. So as we've already discussed, and as Roger mentioned, CPA, CFA, an attorney. But if we had a two-tailed distribution of the IQs on this call, I can guarantee you my IQ would be in the left tail. But thank goodness my work ethic is in the right tail. So it's all about being motivated. Started my career in public accounting, CPA, also started at Deloitte. First tangible benefit I saw of being a CPA when I applied to law school, I kid you not, I got personalized acceptance letters that reference my work experience at Deloitte and my CPA as being a differentiating factor in getting into law school. And because they make you study all that business law and tax and economics, etc. What an advantage I had in law school, because other than constitutional law and criminal law, just about everything else I saw in law school, whether it was property law, contract law, bankruptcy law, securities law, corporate law, obviously tax, what an advantage I had being a CPA. And then because my only practicing credential is ADD, after I went to law school, worked at EY for a short time as a tax attorney with the emphasis on short, because I wanted to have my own practice, do my own thing. And lo and behold, I started to doing a lot of tax and wealth management, gift estate trust and what have you. So the CFA seemed like the natural extension from that. And once again, that background in public accounting, what dividends it paid, because levels 1 and 2, as I mentioned earlier, are inundated with heavy duty accounting. And not only US GAAP, but the default rule for the CFA charter is IFRS. So it certainly behooves you, my friends, in the US, you want to get to learn US accounting before obviously You worry about adding IFRS to your repertoire. Little bit different than the CPA though, because with the CFA, there's no particular major you need to have to be eligible to sit for the CFA exam. So obviously passing the bar exam, 3 years of law school, then you pass the bar, you know, get a degree in accounting, finance, you want to get into management accounting. I recommend everyone on this call, you need to look at whatever credential you're studying for, like law students, look at the bar exam, because it is unheard of to go 3 years to law school and not pass the bar, right? You have thrown your money away. If you've got that degree in accounting, you've got to finish the job, whether it's your CPA or CMA. Obviously, if you're in finance, the credential to have is the CFA charter. It's not a certification, they call it a charter, nice and fancy. But ultimately, like if you want that Wall Street position, the CFA charter is going to be the pathway for a lot of you to get there. CFA exam just a little bit different than the CPA. Obviously, that's a US-centric exam. The CFA, like the CMA, is a globally recognized credential. As a matter of fact, there are 170,000 individuals around the world that hold the CFA designation. 28 nations around the world recognize that CFA charter. So if you're interested in having some mobility around the world, the CFA charter is going to be something you want to look at strongly. The content starts with, look, you got to understand an income statement, balance sheet, statement of cash flow, because if you want to be an equity analyst, a credit analyst, ultimately, you've got to be able to take what the accountants provide and try to determine, hey, what's the operating risk, volatility in sales and earning? Well, what's my financial risk? How did they raise that capital? Corporate finance, what combination of debt and equity? You'd like to know, hey, if I make the investment, what should be my required rate of return given the risk that I'm assuming? And then you want to look at that entity and say, well, hey, what kind of return are they actually generating? Because that's what the analysts on Wall Street a lot of times are going to do. Are they going to recommend this security as a buy, a hold, or a sell? Do they think it's undervalued or overvalued? But the core is understanding what the accountants provide to you in that 10K, in the financial statements, in the footnotes, so you can better assess risk, growth potential, value, etc. A lot of the CFA credential is about using this information to put together a portfolio of investments that's within their level of risk aversion, that's likely to maximize their return given the level of risk they're willing and able to assume. So that portfolio construction involves understanding equities, common equity, preferred equity, debt, bonds, real estate, alternative investments, hedge funds, mutual funds. But you want to look at these various investment alternatives and try to determine, hey, what's best to meet the needs of that high net worth individual. Maybe you're running your own mutual fund or hedge fund. Maybe you're managing a pension fund. So it's obviously very important to understand pension accounting as well. So Matt, next slide, please. The CFA charter, thank you, thank you, thank you. So why would you want to do that CFA charter? As I've already mentioned, globally recognized. The deep financial knowledge, folks, ironically, having like Roger, teaching CPA for almost 30 years myself. I'm much younger than Roger, but teaching advanced accounting at the university, I'm almost embarrassed to say, when I really started to understand the accounting, when I sat for level 1 and level 2 of the CFA, and I saw how that information was actually used in practice to assess value. So when we talk about a deep financial knowledge, we're understanding the implications of choosing LIFO, FIFO, straight line versus accelerated, about leasing and having that obligation to make payments in the future on the balance sheet versus off the balance sheet, owning an entity and owning 51% where you have to consolidate versus not having control, owning a little bit less and using something called the equity method of accounting. So all of these things that you learn in theory in accounting, you actually get to apply as a financial analyst. There's so many different career paths, folks. If you want choices, and as a young professional, that's why we showed you that buffet slide, you need to sample as many things as you can while you're doing your internships so you can see what it is you actually like, what you might want to do going forward. So when I talk to folks about the CFA credential, there's you could be a research analyst, a credit analyst, equity analyst, there's consulting, there's investment banking, risk management, corporate finance, just so many different avenues where the CFA charter can take you. You want to talk about some financial services firms that might be interested in hiring you, your internship, JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, BlackRock, Fidelity, Vanguard Group, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Citigroup, UBS, Wells Fargo, consulting firms, hedge funds, private equity firms, corporate. You want to talk about choices, it's beautiful. For me, this as a young professional, you will find your niche, but you've got to be willing to make that investment in, you know what, financial, the internship. If somebody's going to pay you $5 or $10 more an hour, it's not about that. Who's going to give you an opportunity to see lots of different industry areas so you can find what it is you're passionate about? You want to talk about money? Let's talk about money. So 39 to 57% more than the non-CFA charter holders. Look, if you get a finance degree from Harvard, from Wharton, you know, a top 10 school, an MBA, you're pretty much golden. The CFA would be a luxury, not a necessity. But if you're not getting your finance degree from one of those business schools, or you don't plan on getting an MBA, but you want to make yourself competitive with those folks, the CFA charter is the credential that can open those opportunities for you and make your application that much more competitive. Next slide, please. So, choices, choices, choices. Here we go. So is it equities? What kind of equities do we have? We have common equity, we have preferred equity, we have large cap, small cap, mid cap, we have value, we have growth, we have blended. There's so many different dividend paying, non-dividend paying. We have fixed income, government bonds, corporate bonds, state and local municipal bonds. Roger would be very excited if you invested in a state and local municipal, because that is generally not taxable at the federal level. So very exciting. Callable bonds, puttable bonds, straight bonds, convertible bonds. All the things you learn in accounting, how to account for those investments. Now you look at it on the financial side. Hey, what's the advantage and disadvantages of owning those various securities from both the perspective of the issuer? Why would you want to issue preferred equity rather than debt? Well, debt is generally cheaper than preferred equity because the interest is tax deductible. The government subsidizes the cost. So major advantage of issuing debt, all right, the government subsidizes the cost, lower cost of capital, lower hurdle rate for me. What's the disadvantage of the debt though? That risk of bankruptcy, because preferred equity dividends are not legally required. So now you're starting to look at this from the perspective of, okay, I'm going to advise a company different ways of raising capital, or maybe you're representing the investor. Why would you want to buy preferred equity versus debt? Well, preferred equity, you're assuming more risk. You're generally going to get a higher rate of return than buying the fixed income where they're first in line in the event of bankruptcy. So you're getting a different perspective on the securities. There's private equity, there's venture capital, derivatives, forward futures, option swaps. In accounting, you learn if you make a profit or loss, hey, does that go on the income statement or direct to equity? But wouldn't it be nice to learn, not just account for somebody else's profit, how does somebody make money in the markets trading futures or trading options? Or maybe you want to advise a company how they can use derivatives to help hedge their risk. Hey, if I lend Roger money at a variable rate, I'm very concerned he's not going to pay me back, but I got Monte there, he can go take care of that collection for me. But if I lend Roger money at a variable rate, where's my risk? Rates go down, my interest income goes down. I don't want to watch my interest income go down. So then maybe I can use a swap. And if I think rates are going to go down, I'll receive fixed, pay variable. All these things you learn a little bit about in accounting, how to account for it. Now you're understanding, okay, how could I use this information to advise companies, or even for your own sake, you're managing your own portfolio, your own 401k. What could I do to put, buy insurance on my portfolio insurance? Maybe you want to buy a put option. There's all these great things that you learn that you can use for yourself and or advising clients. And then real estate, a great way to diversify your portfolio. Stocks and bonds have a relatively high correlation in terms of performance. You want to diversify away some risk, you could buy real estate, residential, commercial, industrial. There's so many different things you could do with real estate to generate income, right? Your rental income, or maybe you want to buy it, improve it, flip it, have that capital appreciation. So again, lots of ways to use what you learn about in theory to make money. Next slide, please, Matt. CFA curriculum, topics, and weights. Okay, 3 levels, folks. These 3 levels have to be passed in sequence. So unlike the CMA where Monte said, hey, you could take either part in whatever order, here you can. It's level 1, then level 2, then level 3. Level 1 exam is a little bit about everything. So you're talking about, wow, look at all the different topics. How does anybody remember this stuff? 300 hours to study properly for level 1. If you're studying on average 20 hours a week, you're looking at 4 months to study for level 1. If you need more time, you can say, Pete, I can't give you 20 hours a week. Okay, can you give me 10 hours a week? Most candidates are studying between 4 to 8 months for each level. I will tell you, between the bar exam and CPA exam, I spent by far the most time studying for each level of the CFA, just because of the diversity in the topics. There's no way you can major and specialize in all these different topics. If you're serious about getting your charter, you need to take intermediate accounting before you take the level 1 exam. You need to have advanced accounting before you take level 2. Level 3, kind of everything built. It's a cumulative exam. So level 3 takes a lot of what you learn in terms of accounting, economics, quantitative methods, equity, fixed income, forward futures, options, swaps, portfolio management, but each level builds on the prior level. Level 2 doesn't really introduce a lot of new topics. It's just a much deeper dive into each of those topics. And then level 3 says, okay, you think you really know this stuff? Now let's put it together in the form of a portfolio. Level 3, CFA copies everything the CPA does. It's now also computer-based. CPA level 1 is given 4 times a year. Level 2 is given 3 times a year. Level 3 is given only twice a year. You can take each level a maximum of 6 times. And if you don't pass that level by the 6th time, you're out of the program. You could take each level a maximum of 2 times per year. So level 1's offered 4 times a year. If you don't pass your first time around, you'll get it the next time. Because level 2 is level 1 on steroids. Level 2 is level 1 on steroids. You don't want to barely pass level 1. I'd rather have you fail it, repeat it, master the core concepts before you move on to level 2. Next slide, please, Matt. All righty, format of the exam, you ready? 4.5 hours for each level. That includes a 15-minute break, okay? It's a mental marathon. All of these exams are mental marathons. None of them are a 15-minute TikTok video. So you can't afford to get anything wrong exam day because you're mentally fatigued. You've got to build up that mental endurance for each of these exams, being able to sit down 4.5 hours uninterrupted working questions. Level 1 is all multiple choice. Level 2, what the hell's a vignette? It's like in the CPA exam, a task-based simulation. It's a case, and there's going to be 4 to 6 questions attached to that case. So you got to know the rule, but then you're inundated with given information that you've got to dissect that information to figure out how to solve those questions. I call it legalized cheating. Whether you're doing the task-based simulations in CPA or the vignettes in CFA, you never read the facts without knowing what they want you to do with the facts first. Once you know what they want you to do with the facts, then you could read it in context, and now you're going to see what's relevant versus what's irrelevant. Level 3, if I got anybody on the phone here who's on the phone like it's 1975, on the internet, I know. Hello, Grandma. So level 3, essays, but it's not really long-winded essays. It's not. It's what they call constructive response. Bullet points are fine, but they want you to actually put together maybe an investor policy statement for a client, understanding their level of risk aversion, understanding their objectives, their liquidity needs, all these different things you'll learn about in levels 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to actually synthesize it, put it together. They're going to tell you, we got this married couple, Monte, 72 years old, his spouse is 25, they want to retire. Hey, how can we put together a portfolio that meets their objectives, you know, so that they can live the lifestyle that Monte's become accustomed to? Really, really exciting stuff. Next slide, please, Madeline. Oh, I'm sorry for the personal information there. All right, steps to becoming a CFA charter. You ready? So again, you have to pass all 3 levels. You also need work experience. The great news is you can take level 1 while you're in school. Now, it used to be in your senior year. They've moved that now. You could take level 1 so long as you're within 2 years of graduating. You really want to sit for level 1 after you've had an opportunity to take that intermediate accounting, okay? Level 2, you don't want to sit for until you've taken your advanced accounting. So a lot of people who are fighting for these precious internships. Unlike accounting, where they're like falling all over you, they're recruiting you like as an 8th grader now. It's nuts. The CPA internship opportunities are off the hook. Finance, not nearly as many opportunities. Boy, if you could say, hey, I'm registered to sit for level 1, that's going to make you much more likely to get that valuable internship. You could pass level 1 while still in college. You can sit for level 2. You got to have your bachelor's, but then you can sit for level 2, start studying for it while you're in your senior year. And there's a lot of overlap between the electives and the content you'll be studying in school, and then you'll be reviewing that while sitting for the CFA. Your grades are going to improve. They're not going to suffer. Now, 300 hours each and every level. I'll tell you, I spent a lot more time as a CPA studying for level 3 because I didn't have a ton of portfolio management classes. Just couldn't do it because I had to use my electives to be CPA eligible. Everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses, okay? So that's fine. You just want to look at that curriculum and try to figure out where you're going to need to work more or less. 4,000 hours of professional in the investment decision-making process. You could get that experience before you sit for the exam, while sitting for the exams, or even after you pass the exams. It's generally 3 to 4 years of work experience, okay? That's pretty much what's needed. Unfortunately, CPAs who want to be charter holders, audit does not count anymore. Can you imagine that? They're discriminating against us, Roger. Audit experience no longer counts. Can you imagine that?
People will rise.
Unbelievable.
Roger and Monte are stunned. They're like, what's this New Yorker talking about? I feel threatened. All right, what do you got next, man?
I need it to be translated into my language so I can talk.
All right. So fact number 1, as I mentioned, you can sit for level 1 really in your junior year. Make sure you got intermediate 1 and 2 accounting done. Level 2, you could sit for, you got to have your bachelor's degree, but you can start studying at that senior year, then you can knock out level 2. Fact number 2, man, don't take my word for it. Not only a competitive advantage, I'm talking about a financial advantage, baby. You want to talk about people who are making money on Wall Street? Tons of those people have the CFA charter. If you get an MBA from a top school, wonderful, but that's going to take you 2 years and a lot of money, a lot more money to get a master's degree, and you could be every bit as competitive with that CFA charter. You get a top 10 MBA, you're golden. Any other MBA, compare that head to head with the cost of a CFA charter. As Monte would say, the net present, you want to add value to your net worth, you got to look at the outflow to get the MBA from a 2nd-tier school versus the relatively small outflow for the CFA with a huge inflow. Fact number 3, advanced career opportunities. That little smorgasbord of opportunities I was talking about earlier, those internships, that's a tremendous opportunity to sample different things to see what you like. So don't worry about the money. Get an opportunity where you can get a little bit of equity analyst, a little bit of fixed income, whatever you might have interest in. Next slide, please, Matt. I hope I ain't going over. They're going to want to stab me. Madeline's looking at me like she stack your. All right, here we go, folks. They're not mutually exclusive, okay? CPA, CFA, CMA, everything is grounded in accounting. So intro to financial, cost, managerial, intermediate, advanced, you got to know it. It's going to pay dividends throughout your, whatever your passion may be, but that's kind of the core that everyone needs to succeed in business. Next slide, please, Matt. Politely aggressive with your career, folks. When you go to a firm, my friends who are going to go public accounting, if you don't speak up, they're going to put you where there's a need. Volunteer. Give yourself an opportunity to sample all those different, pharmaceuticals, oil and gas, airline industry, entertainment, manufacturing, see it all. This way you can decide firsthand what you like, what you're passionate about, okay? If you don't speak up, they're going to stick you where there's a need. Find a mentor, reach out to myself, Monte, Roger. This is what we do. We're passionate about. We're so happy to help you out in your career any way we can. Maximize LinkedIn by adding us as contacts, and we'll be happy to help you out. Mad, keep going, baby. I'm sorry. I went as fast as I could. I feel like I just gave birth to a charter holder, Mad.
Okay, no worries. You are good, Pete. So obviously we are right here at the top of the hour. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the programs that we offer, and then we can answer some questions. So if you're able to stick around for a few minutes after, we would really love if you could do that. However, we do have a quick poll we wanted to run, and I'm going to pop it up here. And if you all could answer the question, I'm going to give this a go real fast. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see if I can do this. Julie, if I might need you to pop in here to do it.
Monty, I like you clean shaven. Not that I'm checking you out or anything, but I got to tell you.
Okay, the poll.
I can. That's the other Monty. There's a couple of Monties involved in this.
Okay, the poll is open. After watching this presentation, what credential are you thinking about pursuing? And maybe you came here to hear about one and became interested in another. That would be interesting to know. Okay, I'm seeing the results coming in.
Excellent.
CFA.
Management accounting.
All right, we'll give it just a couple more seconds.
Roger, when I say CP, you say,
Hey,
there you go. Let's go.
yo, yo, yo.
Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up, and we'll post what we see. Hold on one second.
We're back.
All right, results. 83% CPA. Very happy to see 35% CMA, 27% CFA, and 6% other.
There'll be
Yeah,
no
but
living with
started at
Roger after this.
3%. So you sold it so well that everybody's now going, maybe I should consider that CFA thing.
Yeah, but also you showed that it is not easy. It's not easy. So we have to take this thing into consideration. Okay, really fast. If you all loved what you saw today, these are our lead instructors in some of our top products, but they are not alone. They are joined by a team of illustrious experts in the industry. They've worked in the field, they've worked in their respective fields of expertise, and they've also worked in education at top universities. This is our CPA team, which you see Roger and Peter are there as well. Our CMA team,
My family.
your family with
A lot of family.
Monty, and our CFA team. So these are all the best of the best that you have helping you along. And they're not just instructors, they're also writing the content that you're interacting with in our questions and our study guides. It's really, really great content that's honed in on making sure you pass and you know exactly what you need to pass the exam. Very engaging instruction delivered side by side with that text that I was just talking about. And everything that we do is based on the entities that are delivering the exam. So our basis for our course for CPA is based off the AICPA blueprints. IMA content specification outlines for the CMA, following that along just to make sure that you are prepared for exactly what they are asking, and for the CFA Institute learning outcome statements that you see in CFA as well. So no matter what we do, every aspect of our program is rooted in these entities so that we can make sure that you are thoroughly prepared for what the exam is actually asking of you. So right now, this is what our text looks like in CPA, and in the CPA exam, you will always know right at the top when you're in the program, what is the representative task that you are being tested on? What is it on the exam that you are being that you are focusing on in the material at that moment in the course. So everything is very cohesive and streamlined and works together. I have such little time, but the anatomy of our questions, there is a science to it. Everything that we do, the questions themselves mimic the actual exams. The answer explanations, blood, sweat, tears go into the development of these questions with illustrations that help bring the concepts to life, and then thorough explanations that engage in active learning and really help you understand why not only you answered the question correctly, but also why you answered it incorrectly. We have purposeful study tools that keep you on track. Our digital flashcards, you can create your own, or within the programs, we also have preloaded flashcards that provide the content from our experts we utilize spaced repetition technology when delivering these flashcards. So what that is it makes sure that you see the flashcards that you need to see. You rate yourself on how you performed as you saw that flashcard. How well did you know that information? So it will show you the flashcards that you need to see so that you can continue studying what you need to do. Along with that are My Notebook, which this is very easy to organize product where you can actually copy and paste directly from the questions. Let's say you see an image while you're in the answer explanation. You're like, wow, that's going to really help me remember that concept. I'm going to put it in my notebook, or I could put it in my flashcard. So everything, again, works together really, really nicely. And ultimately, if you have a plan and you stick to it, that is how you are most likely going to reach your goals. Our dynamic study planners help you build a study planner that meets your needs. You identify what days of the week you can study. You let us know how many hours that you can dedicate at that time. You put that in, and then it provides a full layout of everything that you need to do on every day. And it's dynamic, so it can adjust to meet your needs as needed. So finally, I'm going to quickly show you the 3 packages that we have available that include all of these things that we've talked about today: the thousands of questions, the study guides, full-length practice exams, the flashcards. Also, we have live boot camps. So we have this full bank of all the wonderful lectures that our instructors bring, but we also have opportunities in which you can log in live, ask your questions, interact, and have a very specialized, tailored learning experience within the program. So if you're interested in CPA, there is the product QR code right here that you can check out. And of course, we have financing options, and also we have partnerships with hundreds of firms. So if you're working at a firm or you are expecting to go work at a firm, there's a very good opportunity and chance that we have a partnership with them. And if not, you can ask your HR director. In many cases, you can get reimbursed for UWorld, regardless of whether or not it is promoted within your benefits package. And so this is similar. I'm going to go through the other programs so you can see, but we have very similar offerings within each of our programs. I'm just going to keep this up for a second. If anyone is interested in the CMA program, here's the QR code to find out more about that. And again, all of those great features that we talked about.
Get that one. Get that one.
Yeah, get this one. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, and last but not least, our CFA program.
What is
Yeah.
that?
You can become CFA man.
Oh, my word.
CFA, all right, I'm gonna keep that up just for a second.
Yes,
Okay, and while I have that one up, I'm just gonna pull up, we have a few questions that the team has given me. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to ask all of them, but if you want to stick around, we will answer a few. So thank you so much. Oh, forgot to mention this. If you loved what you see and you would love to help spread the word about these different designations and about UWorld, you could become a UWorld ambassador. And that's either if you are in college or at a university, or you are working for a corporation or a firm. So if your place of work or where you're going to school, you could help spread the word. If you hit that QR code, you can fill out the interest form, and one of our UWorld team members will reach out to you about next steps. So keep that up. All right, great. So I will keep that up. First question. I am nervous for my upcoming exam, and this makes me lose my concentration when studying. How can I work on this?
Repetition. I mean, I would say repetition. You know, going over the topics again and again is really important. A lot of us tend to, just before the exam, focus on the stuff we're good at. You need to also focus on the stuff that you're having trouble with. So it's important to just, you know, oh, accounts receivable, I get them. Percentage credit sales, aging of AR, let me keep doing it. but maybe I need to study derivatives or consolidations or spend a little bit of time on that as well. So, and it's normal to be nervous. That is normal. You never walk out of any of these exams going, wow, that was easy. Usually when you feel good about it, you didn't do as well. When you walk out and you go, oh my gosh, that was difficult. I remember this and this and this. That says you were probably very well prepared. So again, it's a normal feeling. You're going to feel overwhelmed. But again, there's light at the end of the tunnel. That's why we're all here.
Yeah, I'll say also the programs that we have, they have robust analytics that help you identify those areas where you do need to spend a little bit more time. And as Roger said, it's best to focus your energy there and boost those areas up so you can feel good about those problem areas.
You're gonna pass. You're gonna pass. If you don't pass the first time, you'll pass the second time. It doesn't matter. You're gonna pass. We'll help you. You're gonna have the analytics. You're not going for a 99% performance. You're going for about an 80% performance. You got this thing. The important thing is you don't come into the exam freaked out, as this person asking the question is concerned about. So we're going to help you with that. Just the quickest advice I have is don't overstudy the night before. Get good rest, go out to the movies, be with someone you love, have a nice dinner, trust yourself. Just take a breath, come in and you'll just have a successful experience. We're going to get you there.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Do you recommend preparing for 2 CPA exams at the same time? For example, bar and aud.
You know, back in our day, we had to sit for all the parts at the same time. And so we would spend 6 months and, you know, and that's why they had a minimum score on the parts not passed. Now that you don't have to do that, I would say just take one part at a time, study one part at a time, get that off your list, and then you can focus on the next. Now, there may be some overlap, for example, between FAR and BAR or TCP and Reg. So in that case, you know, if you want to study one and then study the other one immediately afterwards, that might make it a little more efficient as well. So a lot of times we'll say maybe study a core and then that discipline immediately after. That might correspond to it. So again, I would say if you don't have to study for 2 simultaneously, nail one at a time.
Great. Okay, here's a good one. Does CFA level 1 look similar to FAR?
There's a lot of overlap in the content, specifically due to the accounting. So that is about 20% of the exam, but that kind of understates the weight of the accounting because you really can't do corporate finance, equity, or fixed income unless you have a good understanding of the accounting. So it's probably closer to about 40%. In the accounting and corporate finance, we look at equity and debt more from the perspective of the issuer. Then when we do the investment side, we look at equity and debt from the perspective of the investor. And it's a zero-sum game. One side's required rate of return dictates the other side that cost of capital. So a properly prepared candidate sees the overlap in those concepts. I would say there's also overlap between bar and level 1 of the CFA because your bar is going to have your, there's a little bit of cost volume profit analysis, but your bar is going to have your financial statement analysis. And obviously you'll see a lot of that in the level 1 exam. There's also overlap between level 2 and FAR and or bar because the level 2 exam, you're going to have both in levels 1 and 2, your leases. But as I mentioned, consolidations, multinational operations and consolidations touched on a little bit in FAR and bar. So if you do really well in FAR and bar, chances are you do pretty darn well in level 1 of the CFA.
Great. Okay, here's one more CFA for you. I passed the CFA level 1 exam about 5 years ago. How do I resume with level 2 preparation after this break?
All right, so that 300 hours is going to be to prepare for level 2, but you're going to have to probably do about 100 hours to recoup the knowledge you've probably forgotten after you pass level 1. The good news is when we teach the level 2 concepts, you know, it's not uncommon for people to have a long break in between levels. There's also, you know, the people sometimes, you know, barely pass, portfolio management or equity or fixed income. The CFA gives you a breakdown. Were you in the bottom 10%, the top 10%, or maybe you just got above the minimum passing score? So I don't know where your score was on all those individual topics. So we will review the core concepts that are testable and get in level 2, but then we go into the deep dive in the level 2 content. So I would just say I would add 100 hours to review your financial statement analysis, your quant, your equity, your debt, your portfolio management. You can actually reach out to us offline because we could get you access to our level 1 intensive review if you'd like before you enroll in level 2. This way you can do a quick review of those concepts before you roll into the level 2 course. But we could talk to you about doing that offline, but you might get a lot out of that.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm just going to ask one last question. Somebody asked CFA versus CPA, which is more challenging, but I'd kind of like to throw CMA in there as well as we wrap up. What do we think ranking-wise the exams stack up in difficulty?
I think, the major difference is, like I mentioned earlier, you can't sit for the CPA exam unless you've majored in accounting and you've taken all those core requirements, X number of classes in audit, tax, accounting, etc. So I would say the CPA, and I guess Roger and Monte, I'd ask you to weigh on this, but I would guess CMA, CPA, 75, 80% of that content is probably going to be a review. I don't know if you got an A, a B, or a C, how long you're out of school, but 3/4 of those exams you've seen before. A relatively small amount, governmental not-for-profit, a lot of people don't have an elective in that. They might be learning that with us for the first time, some tax and what have you. CFA is just inherently different because, like I mentioned, there's no way you could have majored in all those different disciplines, right? So I always tell people for the CFA, there's going to probably be only 50% of that content you feel pretty comfortable with. And then the other half, you might be really learning a lot, which is cool. Like, we're going to teach it to you as though you haven't seen it before. That's fine. But to me, that's the major difference. And then, 3 levels for the CFA, I think adds to the, 300 hours for each level. So 900 hours, 1,000 hours to pass all 3 levels. I think for the CPA, you're usually 400 to 600 hours to pass, study for all 4 parts. CMA, Monte, what do you think?
We're actually about 100 to 150 hours per part. So we're 250, 300 hours. I would say, universally, the CMA exam is going to be a little easier, but that's a general statement. It's really depends on where your passion is, where your commitment is, and of course, your educational background. So it's a tricky question to try to answer.
But if we went purely by time, Monte, I guess then maybe 300 hours CMA, 400 to 600 CPA, and the consensus is about 900 hours for the CFA. So for what it's worth, if you look at the time commitment, that's kind of how it would rank on average.
Yes. And I saw someone also said, if I went to a great school, do I still need a review course? Yes, because there's a lot of stuff you haven't seen. As Pete mentioned, when I was in college, governmental accounting was an elective, and I elected not to take it. So the only time I saw was through the review course. So there's a lot of stuff you may have never seen. And that's what our job is in all 3 of these disciplines, is to teach you what you need to know to help you accomplish your goal of passing each of these individual exams. So regardless of the school you went to, yes, you need a review course because of the fact that there's material you haven't seen.
Yeah, and I just want to throw in as well, folks, as a professional test taker, as we all are, step number 1 is to be properly motivated. Why are you doing this? What's your objective? What opportunities is this going to present to you, both in terms of job opportunities and financial opportunities? When you're properly motivated, you will be willing to make the sacrifice for that year or 2 commitment to get through these exams that will then pay you back for the next 35, 40 years of your career. So when you talk about a return on investment, boy, your investment, as Monte said, capital investment in yourself, the time and effort, it's worth it in the long run. Boy, you will never be between jobs unless it's because you've decided I'm going to find something I'm more passionate about.
Yep. Very true.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all. Just to wrap it up, we had one last question: that does UWorld partner with universities, and I'll throw in, and firms and corporations to offer prep materials? And the answer is yes. So to find out more about our partnership opportunities, and if you have any questions for our team, please hit that QR code there, and we can help get you in the right direction to answer your questions. And if you're interested in having any of these wonderful gentlemen at your firm, corporation, university to speak, possibly, we can talk about those types of opportunities as well, and they can help motivate your peers and coworkers. So thank you all for your time today. Apologies for going over, but hope that you got something good out of it. We will be sending out the recording, possibly some of these slides as well. So be on the lookout for that in the next couple days, and hope you all have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you, everybody. Good luck with your choices.
Great to
Thank
be
Guys,
with you
good
all.
luck.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.